the air coming in off of or from like Canada off of the lakes there, right? So that's when it gets super cold.
So even when it doesn't snow a lot, you get like this horrible wind chill. I mean, nothing like you get in Chicago. I'm not trying to say that, but there's mountains everywhere, so it's a city, let's say half the size of Phoenix, but it all looks like Bisbee or Jerome.
Oh wow.
So tiny streets, 45-degree angles on the road, people parking on the side of the street, and when you get a foot of snow, you abandon your car and walk home. And it's terrible. It was such a frustrating experience, and it's changed a lot in the past 10 years, but when I left, it was not being weird and kind of doing your own thing was different. I mean, it was a steel town. Right. So it's, hey, you grow up, your father worked in the mill, your grandfather worked in the mill, so you should be trying to work in the mill. Mm-hmm. And when all the mills closed, the mindset stayed, but there were no mills.
There's no job. Yeah.
And so there was a lot of carryover from the 70s and the 80s of don't be weird, don't stand out, don't rock the boat. Mm-hmm. And so then you get somebody who wants to play music and do art and all this stuff, and people are saying, well, that's weird. You're doing that stuff for attention. And it's like, well, duh. Of course I am. But we're not supposed to admit that.
That's the whole point of playing music, right?
But yeah, like I want a creative outlet, and it's just, much more traditional family type stuff. Or at least that's my experience. But the people that I know kind of had the same experience where it was, oh, you'll never make it in the music biz. You'll never do this. And it's like, but we just want to have fun. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not about making it in the music business. It's just going out and playing music and doing something that reaches people. And, Pittsburgh at the time didn't have a lot of people coming in or going out. Like when I left, I got a lot of, you're a traitor for leaving.
Sure.
And it's like, I'm not a traitor. I just don't fit in here. And so, and so, I just, I didn't know what to do. And then I came out to Arizona, and it's like, oh man, like there's so much more art and celebration of doing things differently that, it doesn't feel, you don't feel shame in doing it, if that makes sense.
Well, and what's interesting is I feel like you came out here like right at a time when things were starting to like really move in that direction. Because I remember probably early 2000s, I don't remember there being a ton of stuff around. And there was definitely not this sort of feeling of connectedness, or that there was a lot of, I don't know. It seemed to right around that time, like mid to late 2000s, and then it's only continued to grow more. So I think of a much more, there's a greater fostering of creativity and so forth, I think. So it seems like you moved out here at a good time.
See that? Perfect timing.
I bring up often that when I was first entering adulthood in, 2000, 2001, that there was really nothing out on Roosevelt Road. There was
really?
Hardly anything there at all. Yeah, and it like cranked up and exploded within 5 years, it felt like. And then it tipped over to the other side now, where have you ever seen that Simpsons where they where Bart goes to get his ear pierced?
Yeah, and then
everything's and then everything is becoming a Starbucks, and
yeah.
He's like, hurry up before this becomes a Starbucks, and then like on the way out, it feels like everything is like a luxury apartment complex coming soon.
Yeah, I see that. But it's also like the top 5 and the fastest growing cities.
Yeah, it has its blessings and its curses. I think it's. I think that the upside for creative types is going to be that every major city in the top 5 has an art scene,
right?
And and puts importance on there being that kind of culture in order to have something for people to do. So I think we're all going to kind of feel some boost from that. But
Yeah, and I think with that, you get the good and the bad of you have all these luxury apartments because that's what makes the money.
Right.
Well, we have to sell these people this giant house and this giant thing and I think that's part of the confusion that we have, where you see people talking about, these people don't have any money and these people this and these people that, when in reality, the fact is, all we need to do is put food on the table.
Right.
But the reason that we're having these issues with housing is because they're not making new houses that are reasonable.
Right.
Everybody has to have a 5,000 square foot house. And so that's all that are made. So it's not a case of I can't afford housing. It's a case of I can't afford the housing because they haven't made housing that's reasonable for anybody other than millionaires type of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like my first house in Pittsburgh was built in the turn of the century. And it was, it was like 700 square feet or something stupid like that. It's 800 square feet. And I was a single guy, and it's like, that's all I needed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a kitchen. What more do I need to get me through the day?
People don't need all that space.
No. And that's what's so interesting is, but they're building it because, we're trying to sell this idea of luxury. And so now you take someone who's fresh out of school, who, when I got out of school, I made $1 more than minimum wage. That's all I made. And I spent the first 3 years of my art career making anywhere from $1 to $3 above minimum wage. And you drive the beater car that you go, please just get me home.
Right.
It makes the weird noise, and all that's your whole thought the whole ride home. Just get me home. I'm begging you, just please get me home.
Yeah.
And now we're told, oh no, you have to have this giant thing. But it's interesting because if you read, and I read articles a lot just because I like to read and I want to be informed and know what's going on. There is all this stuff that's going on of people living in these, like you see like the tiny home movement and stuff like that, of people saying, I don't want to spend all my money on a room I go in once a week.
Right.
I don't want to heat and air condition a room that I use once a week, and that's basically to go in and walk around and go, yep, there's still stuff in here.
Yeah, no, there's definitely that movement in the opposite direction. We just see the eyesore, but there are people that are doing the hyper small, minimalist sort of, and I guess that's kind of where I found myself. But despite all the stuff,
but again, it's like I bought the house I bought so that I could build a studio in it, and that was it. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have bought the house. But in that. So I live in the South Mountain area.
Okay.
And so I got in right as the economy was just starting to come back together. So I got it really cheap. But I said, I need a house that I can build a stage and put music equipment and all this stuff because, let's face it, I can never stop doing it. I love music that much. And I know you love music that much.
Yeah.
And so to just have it where I have this room that I can go in and pull a guitar off the wall or play the drums or record a song or do whatever I want is really important to me. And I lived in an apartment for 3 years when I first moved out here, and it drove me nuts that I couldn't do it. It was really tough because it's just, here's this drum set sitting there that I can't play.
Oh yeah,
because
terrible.
Let's be nice to the neighbors.
Sure,
probably shouldn't play it.
You want to avoid the noise complaint call and all that.
Yeah, and so I bought a house that I could do that. But my wife, when I met her, she lived in this tiny little house that she cooked, she watched TV, she went to sleep, she brushed her teeth. That's it. That's all you needed.
Yeah,
and it's. But now in that area, every house they build, I think the minimum is 5,000 square foot.
It's crazy.
And so it's just, why are you building these ginormous houses that the average person is not going to be able to afford?
Mm-hmm.
Why is, the houses are well priced at $500,000 because they're a $500,000 house.
Yeah.
Like, it's not outrageous. You're not looking at this house going, it's 500 square feet for $500,000. You're going, it's a ginormous house that 3 families could live in for $500,000. It's actually well priced.
Mm-hmm.
But where's the house for $60,000
that one family can live in?
Yeah, or even just, somebody who said, I want to make an investment and not pay rent.
Yeah.
Like, or, I'm handy, so I don't mind fixing the water heater myself.
Sure.
Whatever. Oh, I want to have a little bit of backyard or whatever they want. They just want a house like I did when I like.
Well, because the alternative, if I'm looking at getting someplace, in a year or two, and my alternative right now is to have a condo or something, which is not that much better than having an apartment. And I would much rather have just a little cottage or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
500 square feet or 1,000 square feet.
Just something that has detached walls,
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, or you could just, sit on the back porch and stare into the sky.
Something, yeah. Yeah.
Like that's one of the things that I used to that I missed about the house that I had back east was, in the basement I had the studio where, hey man, what are you doing today? Nothing. I'm coming over. Great, bring your guitar. That type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I missed that so much in my apartment because at best we could do it with acoustics.
Sure.
But now it's back to, we get the drums going, we get like this whole thing going, and just whatever happens, happens. And hit record and cool, wow, we did something. Or, that sucked, but who cares? We had fun.
Right.
And that's the thing. It drove me nuts that I didn't have it.
Yeah. I mean, and there's just not, it's not, that most of the housing that people can afford is not conducive to that.
Right. Well, and it's also, we live in this weird myth that, oh, well, that's a bad area. You don't want to live there.
Mm.
Well, is it really? Like, why is it bad? Like, I've been to a lot of different places in Phoenix, and I've been to a lot of different places in a lot of different city, and this town isn't scary.
Mm-hmm.
There's some rougher areas. There's some areas you probably shouldn't go by yourself, but there's no areas that I've looked at somebody and said, we got to get out of here now. And I've done that in other cities where it's like, oh my God, we're going to, like, where we're all just looking at each other like, nobody look at the other cars and just drive.
Yeah.
Where it's like every house is just boarded up and you're scared. Like here, there's places where it's like that, but I haven't gone through and just been like, we're going to die.
Yeah.
Because people out here are really nice.
Yeah.
Like even the gang members are friendly. They're like, you're not in our war. We won't shoot you.
All right, let's go back to Pittsburgh for a minute.
All right.
I want to hear a little bit about, were you mentioned that it was kind of difficult to be different and creative out there. So how did you sort of find that outlet and kind of con your family into letting you have the music and all that? And at what point, like how young were you when you first picked up an instrument, and what was it? What drove you to make music?
I was like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I was like 3 or 4, and I was just, trying to do music. Like I remember I would talk to my mom and my dad, just ask them all these questions to which they didn't know the answers to, because my mom likes music, but I wouldn't say she's like me, but she definitely has an appreciation for it, where she would be like, oh, this is a good song, you should listen to this, or hey, you're listening to this, but you should, what about this? Where it's like, okay, I get that you're listening to this, but listen to this classical music and see where it comes from. And gave me an appreciation to where, like at one point I was watching Bugs Bunny and she's like, just listen to the music of the Bugs. Like,
oh yeah.
And when you never stop and listen and think about it until you realize, like, wow, like this is beautiful, and it like without the rabbit hitting the man in the head with an anvil, the music still tells a story.
Yeah.
And I think, it's just, I was hooked on it almost from day one. And it was just like, can I get a guitar? Can I get a guitar? I want a guitar. I want a guitar. I want a guitar. And finally,